The Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty has found 11,000 names on the Wisconsin voter registration lists that have no matching driver's license number to go along with them, which would be the way a person voting under that name would be verified at the voting booth. Well, joining me to talk about it and other errors that Will found during a review of the Wisconsin voter database is Lucas Vebber, the Deputy Legal Counsel for Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. Good morning, sir. How are you?
Hey, good morning, Jay. I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's good to have you on again. Let's start with a simple question. Why were you folks at Will looking at the Wisconsin voter registration, and what were you looking to find? This sort of thing, I assume.
This is a part of a research project that goes all the way back to our report following the 2020 election. We first uncovered some of these irregularities then. And then this past summer, the U.S. Department of Justice sent the Wisconsin Election Commission a letter saying they were looking into their compliance with federal voting list maintenance laws. So state of Wisconsin, every state is required by federal law to maintain their voting list and, make sure that it's accurate. USDOJ was concerned that Wisconsin wasn't doing that and sent them a letter. WEC followed up with that with a pretty incomplete response, and that's what kicked off our interest here. And we've now sent a series of letters to DOJ pointing out some of these irregularities. Yeah,
this is the Department of Justice now under Pam Bondi and Donald Trump. So this is a focus, obviously, that they have election integrity, and I didn't realize that there was sort of prior communication between them and WEC already on this issue. But among the errors you found or things that didn't quite match up was the fact that 11,000 voters don't have a driver's license number matched up with their name. So how could they be verified as Wisconsin voters? Explain that more fully, because one thing I don't think we can really do is leap to, fraud. This is fraud. Couldn't they be using student IDs or passports or something else?
Yeah, so, the irregularities we found don't necessarily mean that there was election fraud here, but it's certainly something that warrants follow-up. So in Wisconsin, you can register to vote either online or using a paper application. If you register to vote online, you provide your driver's license number. They will instantly check that number against the DOT database to verify all the information. So if anything's inaccurate, they will not allow you to register to vote. If you go and submit a paper application to register to vote, either in person on election day or before election day, WEC won't tell us what process they use to verify the information. They just tell us it's a different process than the online process. So and now we know that there are at least 11,000 people on the active voter registration list whose driver's license number doesn't match the DMV database. Now, it could just be a simple mistake. They could have just written a number wrong, or perhaps as they, entered it into the system, it was entered wrong. But it's certainly worth a follow-up.
I just giggle because the Wisconsin Election Commission is just impossible to deal with these people. It just, in general, you can never seem to get a straight answer. They never seem to be forthcoming. And I'm not just saying you will. I'm saying in general, reporters, any sort of investigation, you kind of get the stonewall or the shortest answer they can give you. But this is why Will, being the responsible and credible legal institution that it is asking the U.S. Department of Justice to investigate this further. You did send a specific letter to the DOJ requesting that, correct?
We did, yeah. So at the end of the day yesterday, we sent a letter off to DOJ pointing out these irregularities and asking DOJ to look into it. We asked WEC for the names, this information, so that we could verify it and just find out exactly what these irregularities were. WEC won't provide us that information, but certainly the USDOJ has a lot more power than we do, and hopefully can get to the bottom of what's really going on here.
We're talking with Lucas Vebber of the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty about irregularities that they found in the Wisconsin voter rolls. So you're satisfied that the online voter applications are being handled properly when it comes to verifying the voter, correct? Because it sounds like there's a process in the form that you fill out that you sort of can't complete the form or get past it if you don't have the driver's license or the ID verified. So this would be focusing on questions related to the paper applications. But what sorts of other errors or problems did Will find that you would find concerning or want to point out?
Well, we found that there are, hundreds of people whose name and date of birth don't match. There's about 25,000 nearly voters on the active voter registration list whose name doesn't match the DMV database. And again, these are all things that there could very well be totally innocuous reasons for this. It could be a typo. It could just be, maybe Patrick put Pat on their application and that's getting flagged. But these are real questions, and voting is far too important for us to leave this to chance.
Yeah, and WEC isn't really. Yeah, and WEC isn't really answering them. I'd also stress for the audience that, I mean, I think this is important. These errors aren't a matter of, well, this is old data or this is people who have died. You found the number of registrations that don't include a matching ID number have actually doubled since 2020.
Yeah, exactly. It's nearly doubled from our first report back in 2021. It was when we released it, but it was based on 2020 data. And then to now, we were pretty shocked that the numbers have nearly doubled. Not only is WEC not fixing this problem, but the problem is getting significantly worse.
Well, the other thing I'd stress is that if you can do this with your limited staffers and funding at will, surely it's not too much for the Wisconsin Election Commission and the people who actually run our voter database to do this. Would you agree that all these errors should be easily detectable by people keeping the database, or at least fixable?
Yeah, absolutely it should. And, WEC is a state agency that doesn't seem to be able to do anything right. So, while we certainly hope that they will, do what state law requires them and federal law requires them and clean up this voter list, I'm not holding my breath anytime soon.
We're talking with Lucas Vebber of the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty. So if the Trump Department of Justice is just sort of too busy to investigate further, do you folks at will have a different legal avenue to pursue on behalf of the Wisconsin voters, or are you just flagging this as a matter of an issue of voter integrity? Where does this go from here if the DOJ says, look, we're slammed?
Yeah, well, I think DOJ is actually starting this, they have initially sent that letter last summer to WEC looking for answers. So I think there is interest there, but yeah, we are considering all other legal angles that we can, including policy angles. I mean, there's oversight work the legislature can do here to get answers from WEC as well. And if WEC won't answer us or provide us data, hopefully they'd be able to provide it to legislative oversight committees.
One of the things that I've found about will and the pattern, the way that you folks at Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty work, is that you do not immediately leap to litigation. There always seems to be an opportunity to correct. You give the people who are not answering the questions, or people who you think are maybe violating the law, especially with this new DEI stuff. You always give them the opportunity to make the correction before the litigation is launched or things escalate. So you're kind of doing the same thing here, right?
Yeah, certainly, and that is what we do. We always litigation should be a last resort, not the first option. We always try to send those letters first to let them know, but we will always follow up, and the follow-up lets them know that we're serious, and when we send those letters in the future, they know what to expect. And
you're an effective organization, but one of the reasons that this story sort of leapt out at me when it was offered is Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty did a very credible review and report on the so-called stolen election of 2020. You've received national recognition since for your careful work related to election integrity and what might have actually gone on there, the errors that were involved in that occurred in the 2020 election versus the anger and the exaggeration and oh my God, this is cheating and how much cheating went on. There were all those sort of questions, and you did a very careful and credible review and separated fact from fiction. So I have no doubt that you found serious discrepancies that require further investigation here. I just hope we get the answers to it.
Same, yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how WEC reacts to this, and hopefully USDOJ comes in again and demands some answers themselves, because, like I said, they've got a few more tools in the toolbox than we do.
Well, thanks for being on this morning. I do appreciate it, and keep us updated.
Yeah, thank you, Jay. Have a great day.
That is Lucas Vebber, Deputy Counsel for the Wisconsin Institute for Law and Liberty.